As we get started here, planning for wants or for needs, wants, and wishes. I'm going to get into Bob and Betty example again. If you did not already see our video on long-term care planning, go ahead and check that out. That's where you got the introduction to Mr. Bob and Betty. But I want to talk about goal setting and how goal setting works inside the financial plan here. If you do already have a Money Guide account, then you're going to know what I'm talking about. If you're on here, you don't have a Money Guide account, make sure to get your free access to Money Guide Pro planning through our My Blocks tool. You can go to policyengineer.com, go to financial freedom section, and register yourself for a free account. Get in here, and then you can start building a financial plan for yourself where you'll have the opportunity to set your needs, your wants, your wishes. And so a lot more goes into it than that, and your screen's going to look a little bit different than my screen right now because I'm on the advisor side. But let's just jump right into the thick of things. It is so important that you set targets. But after 15 years of doing this, meeting with a lot of people, when I ask them the question that are there any goals or bucket list things that they want to check off when they hit retirement, I hear a lot of like, well, I'd like to do a lot of this, but I don't know if I can. And so if you're building a plan, what would be nice would be to actually know if you can do it and how it impacts your long-term ability to maintain a lifestyle. And so I'll share with you some of the pitfalls that I find people run into and some of the success stories from being strategic and planning. But today, I'm just going to make up some stuff. If you're on here and you want to use the chat and you want to give me some ideas of goals, please do. Participation is much appreciated. But let's just jump into this. Let me see if I can do this correctly. Boom. You should see right now on the screen a profile for Bob and Betty. And remember, they're a married couple. They're 60 years old, and he makes 100K, she makes 50. We could change this to say whatever you want it to stay. They live in California, but for today, we're going to keep them the same. And they're planning to retire at full retirement age, which, a reminder, full retirement age is the age that Social Security says you can do two things now. You can draw money and not have a reduction in your benefit for taking it early. And number two is you can make as much money as you want and you will not get hit through like a high income penalty against your Social Security. We'll go into more detail about that on a different day. And just know this, if you're born before 1960, your full retirement age may be a little bit earlier. But everybody born 1960 and after, it is 67 years old. And according to the default program here, a male lives till 92 and a female till 94. So it means that we have 28 years to plan for, right? Now, if you're much younger than them and you're in our Money Guide tool, let's say you're 30, 40, 50 years old, then when we go to set goals, you don't have to wait until retirement to execute on those goals, right? You're able to say you're doing it now or you want to do more of it later. But so you could see that there's a bunch of stuff kind of already built in here, right? Some random things. I'm going to delete them, and then let's talk about going through this together, right? And what this might look like. Whoops. All right, so clear the way. Again, let's see, it's policyengineer.com/financial freedom, right? And that's the URL for them to download their own Money Guide account. I believe that is correct. All right. Yeah, it's in the description as well. All right, so let's get into this. How do we differentiate these things, right? You've got needs. Obviously, your basic living expenses are going to fall in there, right? You got to pay for housing. You got to have utilities. You're going to need gas. You got to buy some food. You're probably going to pay for a cell phone bill. Whatever you consider your basic living expenses, they need to get included in here. But a lot of times we think of goals as something out of reach or something in the future that we want to do, not something that we actually have now. In this program, we're looking at goals being anything that you're going to need to be able to afford. Some of those things are current active goals right now. Some of them are pipe dreams that, if it could happen one day, you'd be happy. Well, the point of this is to put everything down. The things that you have to have happen and the things that it would be a dream come true if it took place. And then we can look at what your probability of success would be to achieve these things based on what you're doing now. And then based on, there's a tool in here, which is the playground. And you can fiddle around with different things, like if I saved more money, if I spent less here, if I paid that debt off earlier, if I did that thing, how would it end up resulting over the long haul? But in the end, all of this is around, do you have enough income and money to satisfy all of your goals for the remainder of your life? And it's important. So the least amount of goals you can have in here is going to be your basic retirement expenses, basic living expenses, I should say. Now, in the system, if you're still working, you have put your income at the very beginning, and then your expenses are going to get deducted from that based on what you put in here that are things you're actively living for and paying for now. But basic retirement expenses is looking at your retirement plan itself. And so you're putting in here how much you think you're going to need in the future. So let's just talk about this a little bit. Right now, their example in here, this is just using the system's default. So if I just go in here and say default total living expenses, what it's doing is it's taking the income, which we said they make $150,000 and they live in California. It's deducting the taxes that would need to be taken out for both federal and state. Then it also asked us earlier if they're contributing to a 401k, so it deducts that out of there as well. Then it's going to assume that they're saving 11%. So if you go in here and you go, hey, how is it judging this, right? It's assuming those things. Taxes are taken off, then contributions to 401k, then 11% applying towards savings, and then whatever is left over, they're assuming you use that to live your life. But obviously, it's just an assumption. It gets pretty close for many people. It is not a bullseye, though, for everybody. So you get the opportunity to change that stuff. And if we work together and we're spending time and we're building a true financial plan, we're going to get more granular. So the system has default total living expenses and default basic living expenses. If you want to have the most accurate plan, you would use the basic living expenses to make an assumption of what you might need to cover just the basics, and then versus total, where it's including like everything, right? Basics is just going to be utilities, cost of housing, and that's basically it. And then you'll layer on top everything else. So in here, again, I'm trying to keep it simple. We're going to go default total living expenses, which is about $2,000 more than our basic living expenses, right? And you can look down here and it gets kind of granular, right? It's going to say if one of you retires, if both of you are retired, if one person's alone and retired, if one person's employed and retired. You got all this stuff, but boom, I'm going to hide it, keep it simple. Both people retired, or one had passed away and the other is living alone. These are the two basic situations that are going to be needed. And then we can go in here and add if there are any things that might go away. A common thing would be a mortgage. If you bought your house and within 30 years it's going to be paid off and you'll still be alive, then you can mark off when it's paid off, and it incorporates that into the plan. But these are the basics, right? Let's talk more about goals, like things that maybe don't exist that you want to make happen. So I'm going to focus first on needs. Needs are the lifestyle would be significantly changed, and it's not something that you want to do. You get to pick that order. But let's look at something in here. I'm going to auto-populate some goals for us. So this is going to auto-populate the most popular or most common selected goals by people. Boom. Well, we've got healthcare. Now remember, they're 60. They're going to need some healthcare. They're retiring at 67, which means they're going to be available to go on to Medicare. So this is going to assume they're getting Medicare supplement insurance and they're in whatever Medicare IRMA bracket they fall into. Looks like he's buying a SUV every 5 years. Obviously, if you pay your car off, you have no car payment, it's going to help contribute towards the plan. So if you go in and find your probability of success is low, maybe not zero, but it's a lot less than where you want to be, maybe you come in here and you make an adjustment and you say, let's change this to once every 7 years, once every 10 years. You've got travel. It's assuming in here a total of 15 trips costing $8,000 per year. So they have 28 years that they're going to live in retirement. We're assuming 15 of them they're going to go on trips, and they're probably following the go-go, slow-go, no-go concept, which if you never heard of that, it just means when you first retire, you're go, go, go. You got a bunch of things you want to do. You have a lot of new time on your hands. You've got fresh access to retirement money, and you're putting it to use. And then the slow-go years are things have slowed down. You've checked some things off your bucket list. Maybe you're more satisfied with the more basic things in life. You're not traveling around as much or staying nearby. And then the no-go years essentially are a point in someone's life where maybe travel becomes just too challenging, whether you're just not into it anymore or physically you can't do it anymore. There are a lot of people, once they're in their mid to late 80s, early 90s, travel becomes a lot less. So 15 times. Looks like Betty wants to have a sports car here, let her hair out, blow in the wind, reoccurring 7 years for a total of 3 times. So she's going to buy 3 sports cars. They're only allocating 28 grand to this. So maybe she's putting a down payment and then going to finance, or she's just, buying a fixer-upper sports car. You got 6 grand here for fun money, and then we've got some home improvements. So now what you get to do is rearrange these things. Like if you say, hey, travel's not optional to me, I look at it as a need, then you can just move that over and drop it right in there into the needs section. And let's keep it as a want, because what happens here when you get to the end of your plan and we get the probability of success, depending on how you categorize these things, when you ask the system to give you recommendations on how to improve your plan, it's going to remove wishes or adjust how much money is spent on wishes first. Then it'll move to wants if it needs to, and then needs would be last. And you can go in and lock the needs and say absolutely don't change it, and it'll never make adjustments to those recommendations. Now, for some of you that might be doing this who are younger, I just want to point out there's some other things in here that you may want to consider adding, like if college is something that you desire to pay for your kids, or maybe you're so early in life doing this that you're planning and you're trying to figure out how you're going to pay for college. I want to show you something in here that's kind of interesting. So let's say they have Billy as their son. So Billy's school or college budget. Let's just say Billy is going to start school in 2030. This is their grandson. And he's going to go to school for 4 years. Well, we can use the average cost, which the system will pull, or if you know how much it is, you can go and add that yourself. But I'll show you, you can also find a specific college. So let's see. There's a whole long list of them here. Let's just see what I land on if I randomly select one. Let's get all right. Menlo College. Menlo College looks like it's coming in at $49,000. What is that? In-state tuition, out-of-state room and board, books, supplies, total cost. So we go back to, what was that I said? Menlo College. We're looking at $66,464 in 2024 dollars. So let's select that as our option. And down here, you get to add that up. All right. Now, it's added it, but then what it's also going to do, it's going to apply inflation to this. And you're going to see here, college is defaulting at 6.3% inflation. It's a big deal. You consider that 6.3% means that this is inflating at not quite 3 times, but somewhere between 2.5, 3 times what the standard inflation is desired to be. The Federal Reserve does their part to try to keep inflation around 2.5%. That's what they're fighting for. It's averaged that kind of for the last 20 years. And so college is going up at a pace that's like 2.5 times that. So you got to keep that in mind. But now it's going to go ahead and incorporate that into the plan. Another thing that you want to consider adding that all the time I see gets skipped, but it's important, would be insurance premiums. So this umbrella here, this is going to be the insurance that you pay for some of these items. Like, let's say there's the sports car needs insurance, the regular car needs insurance, the home needs insurance. So you can include that in your basic living expenses, but it's better to extract it and put it on its own, because from year to year, as insurance premiums adjust, either up or down, it's easier to change in your plan just the insurance than going in and reducing your actual total living expenses. Another thing to consider would be like a life insurance policy. We know that this whole plan is going to require X amount of income, but there is something in here that said, well, what if one person passes away, right? You saw in that basic living expenses. Well, towards the end of the plan creation, there's an option to say, what if someone passes away early? It means their income's going to go away. And so you can plug in the cost of a life insurance policy by just taking this. I say it goes in a needs section. I think it's very important that you have a life insurance policy to support your cost in case you're the breadwinner and you go, your family can continue to enjoy this life that you're spending all this time strategizing and building for. So we go into the insurance. Pretty simple. It's probably going to be reoccurring. We would just say enter a year. It's happening now if you've already bought it. And let's just say this person is spending $115 a month. 150, I meant, dollars per month. We change it to monthly. And this happens every 1 year. And this is going to keep happening until the end of the plan, right? Or let's just say it's Bob's plan. All right, and we need to change this inflation to no, because this kind of insurance, a life insurance premium, shouldn't be adjusting on you. You should be locked in at the premium that you bought it at, so that won't change, which is good. And some of you planning, if you didn't realize this, something to take into consideration. Let's say you spend 2% of your annual income on an insurance policy that ensures that annual income can be replaced. So a person who's bringing in $100,000 spends $2,000 per year on a life insurance policy. That's only 2% of that income this year. Odds are you're going to get a raise in the future and it's going to go up. So by the time you're making $150,000 a year, that insurance policy is no longer costing you 2% of your annual income. It costs less than that. Now, when you increase your income, it might increase your need for insurance, but if you're doing your job and you're putting money away into assets and you're building, your insurance amount can stay static. Your contributions to your retirement accounts and your assets you're building is filling the gap, and then eventually, maybe you don't need life insurance, you save up enough. But anyway, my point is you got to make sure you include it in the plan, and we're going to remove inflation from that. So you see, there's a lot of different things that you can add in here. Some of the things I want to encourage you to do is look at like major purchases. Do you have a wish to buy an RV? And RVs ain't cheap. And you want to buy one at retirement, and then you're going to go, hit from West Coast to East Coast and back and forth. And so once they both retire, you're going to put a down payment, and how much are you going to need for that down payment? Well, RV, if you want a Class A diesel pusher, those things that are just indestructible, they could go for $500,000 to $1 million. So maybe you're going to need to put down, let's say, $150,000 on this RV. Now, don't get caught up in the details, right? Like, there's a bunch of ways to do this, and some of you who want to get critical are going to say, why would you finance? What are the rates at? I just want to give you examples. Let's keep it simple here and not major in the minors right now. So we add that in there, And will it go up with inflation? Odds are no, the payment won't go up with inflation. So again, we check that off. Boom, major purchase. Do you have ambitions to donate, right? Maybe you want to be philanthropic. Maybe you believe in giving like tithes and offerings and you're making regular reoccurring donations. Well, you judge where this goes. If you say it's a want, you put it in there. We go ahead and we're going to say that right now the recipient is unspecified. If you want to get in here and get real detail, we could actually build charities in and stuff like that. But let's say you want to give reoccurring donations and it's already starting now in 2024, and I don't know, you want to support whatever this charity is with $1,000 every year. And this is going to happen until end of plan. You want to do that for the rest of your life. It's awesome. And now, in this case, let's say we are going to increase it with inflation because this charity, its expenses are going to get higher and higher over time. So we're going to contribute to them and help them raise what we give them. So you see you got a bunch of different goals in here. We got healthcare, basic living expenses, the recurring SUV purchase, and an insurance policy. Then our wants are the donations, the sports car for Betty, college for Billy, travel every year, some fun money for Bob to just do whatever he does. We want to get an RV, and we're looking at home improvement of $30,000 when they retire. So let's see. Any other ideas? Anybody want to drop anything in the chat? A goal that you're like, Matt, how could you have forgot this? We got to add this in there. Here's something to be mindful of. Providing care. Some of you aren't thinking about that. And this can go two ways. This can either be you want to be able to provide care. There are many of us whose parents or grandparents are in a position where they might need some help. And we know that we're going to be the ones to finance that. This also could be you planning and saying, I don't want to buy any kind of insurance. I'm going to self-insure, and so I'm going to bake it into the plan. What will it cost to self-insure? And now there's no perfect timing of this one. You've got to guess a little bit. But if you're saying, hey, I'm going to contribute to mom or dad if they need it, and mom or dad is currently 70, then you should probably consider that by the time they're in their mid-80s, even if they're living healthy and they don't need it, you should plan now when they're 70 that statistically their mid-80s is the time when you might have to fork up some dough and help with that. So we know that right now they're 60. So that's 25 years from now if you were younger. In their case, they're 60, maybe their parents are already 85, and they're thinking, gosh, I might have to pay for this in not too long, so 2028. And how much does care cost? Well, on a monthly basis in California for home care, you're looking at about $35 an hour. So 35 times 40 hours a week times 4 weeks, it's $5,600. Realistically, it's probably going to come out to a little bit more than that. So we could say $6,000 per month. How many occurrences? Again, where you've got to guess a little bit, but this is 3 years statistically. And remember that long-term care training that we did the last time, talked about that. And inflation on this is definitely more. So you'd want to go base inflation plus probably an extra 3%, 5.5%, or maybe we'll just say 2.5, give us a nice even 5. So you've got a lot of stuff built in here. So now you got all your goals in there, right? And for today's training, I'm not going to go through every single slide and make it all the way to the end. We've already done that before. We put in Bob and Betty's Social Security, if they have any additional retirement income. We've got their investment assets in here. Let's get reminded, what do their investment assets look like? So they have 950 grand and counting. They're adding $18,000 a year in there, right? So you got to fill in what your assets look like and how much you're contributing, and then other assets is their home. But we have this home off limits. They're not planning on selling it to cover it and make sure that they live in it the rest of their life. That was their desire. So I'm going to go to the current scenario, and then I'm going to show you something in the play zone and how we can make that happen. But I just want to I want to touch on one thing real quick. I want to give you permission to think outside the box. I want you to feel like you own this plan and you own your dreams, your goals, your ambitions, right? Your needs, your wants, and your wishes. Don't get caught up in not knowing how you're going to make it happen. Document and declare you want it. And get creative. Be free to start thinking up ideas of things. This plan will support it. If you want to put in here, you're one of those people who are willing to go and get it, and you want to know what it's going to take to get there, go ahead and put in here that you want that, palatial mansion, and come up with the price. And, you can go search Zillow and Realtor and find these awesome homes and things like that, because we can put those in the wishes. And then you'll very simply be able to just delete it and see what the gap is. And now, by doing this, you actually create motivation to push yourself a little bit more. Rather than sticking in the job that's comfortable and just collecting that 1 or 2% increase, maybe you start to get a little bit more aggressive in making lateral moves or working within your company to hit your KPIs and take on new positions of responsibility and get paid more. Maybe there's bonuses that are worth chasing after. Maybe it becomes worth the time to invest outside of just your 401k. Build a side hustle, reinvest all that. Maybe it makes you more motivated to pay off your credit card debt, or just make good decisions with how you purchase. I don't know, but putting it on paper, or in this case on a virtual screen, seeing it alive, and then getting creative to figure out how to make it happen, I think is something that will allow you to get further than if you just let it unfold. Or in other words, a good friend of mine, previous business partner of mine, used to say this all the time. You can live by default, or you can live by design. So this is an opportunity to design how you want things to look. All right, let's go back, and I'm going to run the trial so that we can see 1,000 trials. What is their likelihood of success? We put all those goals in there. Oh, it's not looking too good. 3% success rate. So what does this mean? All these goals they had, it means they got to make some more money and put it away. It means that they might have to spend a little bit less in one area to have more for the other. They may have to give up on one of these, or maybe they wait a little bit longer to retire. But let's see what happens, because there's only, looks like, 33 successful trials out of 1,000. All of the rest of them, they run out of money early. So let's see what happens when we go into the play zone. I think I called it the playground earlier. Play zone, this is where you get to go in here and start to fix stuff around and say, how can I make that happen, right? It's got all of our goals set in here, and they're going to be in order. You see on the left-hand side, we got needs first, then it jumps to wants, and then we get to wishes. So let's look at some of this. The RV. What if they go down a little bit in the RV price, and they bought one that only required that they put 50 grand down? How would that work out? Wow, doubled their chances, went to 10. And maybe we say that his fund money, we reduce that down to 3 grand a year. All right, we got up to 12. And maybe Billy is going to need to apply for some scholarships, or he's not going to be able to go to that school. The public schools were coming up at closer to 24,000. 32%, right? So this is where you get to have fun with it and figure out how you can make some adjustments. Now, maybe you look at this and go, you know what, I got to ditch the sports car thing completely, and I'm going to remove that. But I don't want to compromise on my donations, my insurance premium, my SUV. But maybe they opt for an HMO rather than a Medicare supplement, which is going to drive this price down to probably closer to this. There we go, 76. And let's just say we put Bob to work for an extra year. Do we get into the, well, we're in the green, I guess. Look at that, 78. Bob works for one more year. We are now at 79%. Now, I would suggest also maybe they increase their savings for the years while they are working. So maybe they can put an extra $250 a month away. And what do we get? 82%, all right? The blue is ideal, but being in the green is a place that will feel fantastic. So I want you all to have the opportunity to fiddle around with things and get as ambitious as you want. But how would you feel if you're sitting there working on this, you set out all of these goals, and now you have a realistic approach to say, we can do all those things, it accounts for inflation, says we're going to live to 90-something, and we won't end up outliving our money. Let's explore what it looks like. If I open up and show you the combined details in here, you're going to see here how this all breaks down. So what this is showing is basically what type of money they're spending. So you can see their qualified money is the vast majority of what they have. That is their 401k, IRA, pre-taxed money. Their taxable money, they spent $452,000 over that period of time. Then you've got, this is when Betty retires, that's when Bob retires. There is the end of Bob's plan, that means he passed, and then Betty lived just a little bit longer than him, right? And so now, here we go, year by year, what's going on, right? They retired here, or they're 60 now, she retires right here, they're adding $21,000 a year, and here is how much they needed. They need to have, $1,157,342, and that amount of income allows them to pay that $37,828 for Billy's college, and the year before it looks like they paid, right, all 4 years they covered it. They did their travel, they had all that fun stuff happening, and they had an 80-some% probability of success. So they know now at 60 that when Bob or when Betty retires, they need to have $1.1 million. This gives you that ability to adjust as well. As the portfolio is performing and the investment decisions you're making are panning out, you might have the opportunity to re-engage some of these prior goals, because this is assuming, we have this assuming a pretty conservative rate of return, right? It's only showing 5.48% returns. So that's the other thing that you can do when you're working within the play zone. Right here is, how are you investing? They're in a total return fund. Well, maybe we go while working more into capital growth, and which is going to give us a higher rate of return, and then we become a little bit more conservative. Where do we go here? 78%. What if we go capital growth? Average 6.94%. Kept the probability the same. Now, I'll give you a little inside scoop. One of the reasons why it's keeping the probability the same is because the probability is based on the idea of running 1,000 trials. Sometimes when you get more aggressive, closer to retirement, it can actually decline your probability of success, because the more aggressive you are with investments, the more chance you have for volatility. Volatility is the ability for it to swing up or down sharply. And so you may create more chances, or more multiple of times where sequence of returns risk got the best of you. Meaning it lost money because of the volatility early on, and it sent you into a tailspin that you couldn't handle anymore. But that is something they could consider. And then you'll see in here, there's other things like, these are some of the custom portfolios we built, but what if somebody had money in an annuity and they were getting a guaranteed stream of income? And these are things that you might consider making happen. But anyways, with what we have going in here, ultimately what I want to encourage you to do is take the time to consider, what are the things you're going to need to have at the time in which you're able to convert from earned income to passive income. That's my definition of retirement. I'll probably always have my hands in something, but I'm striving towards a day where all of the things I want for my lifestyle can be 100% funded through income off of investments, not earned income. And then 100% of my earned income could just go towards increasing the generational wealth that I want to create. If you have those same ambitious goals, then building a plan having an idea of what risks you face that might get in the way of it, understanding how to budget towards insurance policies that put bumper rails on those potential risks, and then charging hard and updating often. It's a feeling that will be satisfactory. It'll give you an extra sense of confidence towards what you're doing. And for those of you who go in here and you just put in your basic expenses and you go, holy smokes, it says I have a probability of success that's very low, and I didn't even put in anything fun, exciting, crazy. These are just the basic things. Well, I'll tell you what, thank God you put it in there and you got an opportunity to see that you're not on track and significant change needs to be made. And you be the decision maker on whether those changes are increasing income to increase savings, reducing expenses, adjusting investment portfolio, or maybe a combination of all of them. But let's see, if any of you got any questions in the chat, I will take them and we can talk about it. And if not, that's okay too. I appreciate you guys taking the time to jump in here. I hope that you not only saw this and said, wow, that's great, but I hope that you get inspired to go take it into your own hands, go to the website, open yourself up a Money Guide account. It's absolutely no cost to you. The link is set up in the description. You can find it on policyengineer.com. Go to the financial freedom section and register for Money Guide, My Blocks. And I'm just scratching the surface here. This is where you're going to do the goal setting. There's a whole range of different tools in there. If you have debt you want to pay off, there's a debt payoff program. There's a way to create a budget, to do transaction reports so you can see what you've been spending and maybe where you have room to make adjustments. There's a tool that helps you come up with life insurance planning strategies, how much you need, and how to ladder policies, and the list goes on and on. There's a ton of fantastic tools in there, and unfortunately, most people don't have readily available access to it, so make sure you get yours and share it with others so they can have that as well. Awesome. Thanks, you guys.